Good morning, North America. Welcome to Church Talk TV. Lively talk about life, church, and church life. I'm your co-host, Dr. Bill Tenney-Britton, and I'm joined, as usual, by my co-host, Dr. Kris Tenney-Britton, and we're broadcasting from our studio in Columbia, Missouri, the heartland of America. Say good morning, Kris.
Well, good morning, and welcome to Church Talk TV.
Kris and Bill Tenney-Britton here. Today, we're going to talk about multiplying leaders because, I've yet to be in a church where people said, man, we just have so many effective, faithful leaders in our church, we don't know what to do. Never. Not once have I seen that.
Yeah, never. And the Pareto principle, many of you may know this, too few are doing too much. According to the Pareto principle, it says that 20% of the people are doing about 80% of the work. But what we have found is that in most churches, and particularly those that are not growing or that are not being effective or are definitely not sustainable, at least not in the long run, we've only got about 10% of the people who are doing 90% of the work.
What I've heard it often said is the church is like a football game where you got 22 totally exhausted players on the field surrounded by 20,000 people cheering them on.
Yeah. So what we find with that is that our current leaders are exhausted, they're unmotivated, and all they're able to muster is mediocrity over and over again, right? We hear this as we do consultations, as we work with pastors and ministers. I'm going to lose this person or that one. They don't have
they're
it
exhausted.
in them. Yeah,
Yep.
they're just beyond that.
Leaders are tired. I hear that at every consultation we've ever done of a church that is struggling.
Right.
Now, there's churches that are growing and thriving. We go in and work with them for staffing.
Right,
but for every church is struggling, 100% they said our leaders are exhausted.
Yeah.
They've tried to do this, they've been doing this, and they can't do anymore. So the question is, how do you get more leaders?
Well, here's what we want to tell you. You can grow your church. And a lot of people, right? Well, we got to get more butts into the pews or in your seats, because the more people that are there, the more leaders we'll have. Just like, we'll have more butts.
Problem solved.
Butts, right?
There you are. Thanks for joining us.
But you know what?
Oh, wait a minute.
Well, and there's something to be said for that, not exactly, but most of us need leaders now. So what can we do with that? Well, of course, as you know, we have some suggestions.
Yeah, we try to do best practices every single week. We hope that it helps you, serves you, and works with your church. So the first thing you got to do is you got to figure out where people's passions lie. The reality is, if someone works outside of their passion, they're not going to give you their best stuff. I mean, they may be willing to fold the bulletins, but unless they see, and are passionate about the difference the bulletin makes in people's lives to help them worship fully and et cetera, that they're like, yeah, okay, I can fold them. And so you end up with papers like this,
Yeah, it's part of that mediocrity, right? When you
yeah.
hear those words, well, I can do it if nobody else will do it, then you know that you're in a little bit of trouble. So, hopefully you have a sense of some people, at least, if not everybody's passions. And if not, there are ways of asking people what excites you, or what do you do during the week that has no, you wouldn't have to do. You just do it because you get to do it.
What would you do if you had all the time and all the health and all the resources and you didn't have to work? What would you spend your time doing?
Right.
But to be fair, you can also take assessments. Right. And we, at the effectivechurch.net, you can find the personal ministry assessment that includes a gift inventory, but also it's got a passions assessment, and you can help people find their passions. They go, hey, this is what I really love about. So, but there's a lot of different inventories out there. PMA is a great one. It is because we wrote it.
I wrote it. Yes, exactly. Right. Put it together for when we started a new church. It's been around for some 25 years now. Oh my gosh, could be that long. Okay. Anyways, 27
All right.
years.
So identify passion because you want people with passions in the positions. Okay. Right. That's number one. Okay. Second thing is identify potential leaders. And when I say that, I don't mean like who's got the greatest leadership qualities. Right. I mean, Do you have qualifications for what a leader has to be? Do they have to attend church on a semi-regular basis? Do they need to be reflecting love and joy and peace and all those things? What are the qualifications for leadership, or is it just that they have to have a pulse? If they have a pulse, we'll put them into leadership, and that tends to be what most churches do. And when you put leaders that have a pulse but no other qualifications, then you get the leaders you deserve.
So what he's saying is we need to identify qualifications, right? What is it that we require? We can do a whole series on that one. So, all right. So then we're going to recommend to you the Jesus model. You like this. Go ahead and tell us about
the Jesus
that.
model of discipleship or leadership development is doing just what Jesus did. Jesus went out and he called a whole bunch of guys, and gals, and he pulled them along, and he, I think these guys are going to be my leaders, but I'm not sure. Although normally we see, he picked out 12 off the beginning. If you go to Mark, he has a whole bunch of people, and then he's been with them for a while, and he picks the 12. And then he says, "Come and follow me." And they got to watch Jesus do miracles. They got to watch Jesus do prayer. They got to watch Jesus teach. And then after they've watched it for a while, Jesus says, "Hey, listen, guys, I want you to go out and you go and preach and you go and do miracles and you go out." And so they watched Jesus, and then they did it. And when they came back, they debriefed. We read that they came back and Jesus had conversations with them. And then ultimately they went out and repeated the same thing. We went from 12 to 72. And then, of course, when Jesus was dead, buried, resurrected, and ascended, then the church, those 12, or 11 at that point, they got together and they began doing the same thing. They had people watch, and they taught them, and then they turned them over. So you see one, you do one, you teach one, see, do, teach, which is sometimes called the medical model, but we all know that they got this from Jesus. Well,
exactly.
Jesus probably got it from Moses.
Hello,
but whatever,
the
it goes
great
all the way back.
Physician.
That's right. Okay, there we are.
So to give you an example of how this can work, right? We have a friend. He wasn't our friend at that time. We just heard about this. A pre-friend, yeah.
We didn't even know him.
Not even an acquaintance, right? But somebody we knew we wanted to meet along the lines. So we heard this story. He was a layman in his church, a young guy, but his pastor saw potential in him, and so.
But he didn't call it out to begin with.
No, Lordy, no.
He didn't say, "Oh, hey, you're my next leader."
Yeah, right. Well, and what they saw was that there were a cluster of people. This is also a lesson on how to start new small groups in your church. Yep. But there were a cluster of people who lived in a particular area that was just beyond where the church was located. And he and so the minister went to this young man and said, "Hey, we're looking at doing a Bible study out there near where you live, and I wonder, would you come and be part of that Bible study? And you may even have neighbors that you'd like to invite." And so they started that small group out there where this young man lived. And with time, the young man really did show himself to have that potential. And so then the minister said to the young man one evening, he said, "Hey, listen, I've got to be gone next week. Is it possible that you could lead this study for me?" "Oh, I don't know." And he said, "Look, the book, it's right here. And, you do this, and that." And the young man said, "Yeah, I could do that." So the minister come back and he said, "Wow, I heard such great things about that. Well, how was it for you?" And they go back and forth, talk about that a little bit more. And then, a couple of weeks later, the minister had to step out again. And
amazing.
Yeah. And
Monday Night Football or something.
Yeah. So he came back, and then he said to the young man, "Wow, I don't know why you can't do this all the time, because this will allow me to work starting a new group." And the young man wasn't sure, but he stepped out. Well, let me tell you, that group went and grew. They started a new nucleus of a church plant actually out there in that area. Under
the direction and under the invitation of that pastor who continued to pour himself into this young
man, who then became the pastor in his own right. And someone said, "Wow, you really need to go to seminary and become a real ordained minister," as though he wasn't already a minister. But anyways,
we're not going to go there.
Yeah, we're not going there. And today he is, and what is this now, about 25, 26 years later, he is a prominent minister.
Successful in every way.
Very successful. So you can see how they multiplied this, or not multiplied, they built this leader and did that over and over and over again.
And so real quick, let me put it in practical non-story form.
Okay.
Number one is if you want to raise up a leader on, I don't know, let's say you need them to do the bulletin, or you need them to, in our case, we're looking for someone to do video editing. And so I said to a young lady, said, can you come and help me do video editing? And she said, oh, well, yeah, okay, I could. And so she's being taught, and when she has some competence, she's going to watch me do it, and then I'm going to help her to do it, and then I'm going to be gone, and I'm going to say, would you do this 1 week? And then pretty soon, within very little time, she'll take over the complete video editing of our services, and it'll be great. But I started off by just asking for some help. Can you help me? And we've mentored her, or are mentoring her, and she'll be taking over here before too long. So you show her, you get her to do it, and down the line, we'll get her to teach the next apprentice.
Well, and here's what's really cool to me is sometimes these people come along and they are so passionate about it. They're doing their research and they're teaching you, what it is. And by the time, when I've had that experience, by the time they get to where they're teaching me, I'm like, whoa, you have just surpassed me.
That's right.
You're like, it's time for you to be running this, not me.
Okay, there's one more thing I want to point out. Go. We did a video on Church Talk way back, but it's still on there. You can go up and watch it, on about how to extend your leadership base with the one passion, one person, one position process. And what that means is every person has one burning passion in life. I mean, we may have a lot of things we like, but most of us, all of us, have one real passion. And we need to work within that passion. And when we work within that passion, we'll never burn out. We won't get tired because it is what we do. It's not just what we do. It becomes who we are. And so those people, which is everyone in your church, you need to help them find their one passion, and then you help them find one position, not 6 positions so we find in so many churches, because no one will fill those positions. If you don't have anyone to fill a position in your church, then probably that ministry doesn't need to happen.
Well, and I want to put this in a theological, or if you will, a reflective kind of place. And that is, God brings together the people that your church needs, all right? And so if you don't have that person, then it's likely not the time for that ministry, that you need to be concentrating on these other ministries first.
Well, and so often what happens is that as a church gets smaller, as the church goes in decline, that we try to hold on to everything we did when we had 600 members, and now we're down to 50 members, but we're still trying to have this infrastructure or this ministry structure of, for hundreds of people. Things have got to go by the wayside, and as hard and as difficult as that is, if you're going to have excellence, and that's how you grow a church, is through excellence. If you're going to have excellence in every ministry you do, you got to do fewer ministries. If you have fewer people, you got to let it go.
Right. So, we've talked, and we've got several episodes on the 4 core processes. So we want to make sure that those processes are in place. But then it comes time to having to pick and choose your ministries. So you want to look at your ministries, make sure that they fit within those core processes so that you're a well-rounded congregation.
Quick, 4 processes: invite, connect, disciple, send.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Right. So you want to make sure that you've got ministries in each of those. But again, the ones that people hold on to so much that you see those eyes light up, that they're, people are like, oh my gosh, and it's not, well, who does that? Where do you see that passion? Is it your passion? Those are the ministries that you choose.
That's
and
right.
And you just may need to say, not saying that we won't ever have that ministry again. We're just saying we have to do some picking and choosing right now.
Exactly. Okay, we're out of time, but I want to remind you, we talked about the personal ministry assessment. That's available at effectivechurch.net. The other thing I want to point out is that we wrote a book, Billy Sim and I wrote a book on the role of the senior pastor.
Yes.
And that's also there, and it helps you to identify your role today, pastor, on what you need to be be focusing in on so that you stay within your purpose and your passions and you can lead the congregation. We're out of time.
We are so out of time.
We'll see you next week.
Have a great week. Bye-bye.